Remember when 8-tracks ruled the car stereo game? Or when you had to stop everything to answer a rotary phone? What happened to those essentials we couldn't live without in 1970? Today, they're relics of a bygone era, like manual typewriters and avocado-green appliances. So, join us as we're taking a nostalgic yet hilarious dive into things from 1970 that were once must-haves, but are now completely obsolete. Number 20. Rotary phones. Rotary phones were a common feature in households during the 20th century. Invented by Almond Brown Stroger in 1891, these phones had a circular dial with holes representing numbers. Users would place their finger in the hole for the desired number and turn the dial until it reached the finger stop, sending electrical pulses to the telephone exchange. This method, called pulse dialing, was the first widely used system for digitally addressing phone calls. Rotary phones gained widespread use in the early 1900s, eliminating the need for operators to manually connect calls. They dominated communication technology for decades, providing a reliable way to make calls. In 1962, touch-tone phones debuted at the World's Fair, featuring a keypad that allowed faster and simpler dialing. These newer models gradually replaced rotary phones, becoming the preferred option by the 1980s due to their convenience and improved speed. Number 19. 8-track tapes. 8-track tapes, also called Stereo 8, were a popular way to listen to music from the 1960s to the early 1980s. They were created by William Powell Lear and were groundbreaking for their time, allowing music to play continuously without flipping the tape. This made them especially useful for cars, where they became a convenient option for listening to music while driving. The 8-track tape used magnetic tape that played at 3 3/4 inches per second, offering better sound quality than AM radio. Many car manufacturers included 8-track players in their vehicles, and the Ford Motor Company was one of the first to do so. Despite their popularity, these tapes had some drawbacks, such as the inability to rewind and a noticeable clicking sound during track changes. Still, 8-tracks left a significant mark on music history, shaping how people enjoyed music on the go during their heyday. Number 18. Typewriters. Typewriters were essential tools for creating documents and were widely used in homes, offices, and schools. The first commercial typewriter, introduced by Christopher Latham Scholes in 1874, used a keyboard and a mechanism that pressed an inked ribbon to print letters on paper. The recognizable clickety-clack sound became closely associated with productivity. Typewriters changed the way people wrote by making the process faster and more efficient than writing by hand. They became crucial for producing professional documents, letters, and manuscripts. The QWERTY keyboard layout, originally designed for typewriters, remains standard on modern computer keyboards. By the 1980s, personal computers and word processors started replacing typewriters. These new tools allowed users to easily edit, format, and save their work, providing a level of convenience and flexibility that typewriters could not match, leading to a decline in their use over time. Number 17. Slide projectors. Slide projectors were essential tools for displaying photographic slides, widely used in homes, schools, and businesses. These devices projected enlarged images of 35mm slides onto a screen, making it easy to share photographs and presentations. Kodak introduced the first commercial slide projector in 1939, and the carousel slide projector, patented by David E. Hansen in 1965, became especially popular due to its innovative design. Slide projectors operated by shining light through a transparent slide, which was then magnified by a lens and displayed on a screen. They played a significant role in classrooms and corporate meetings, where they helped present educational content and business materials. The ability to automatically advance slides made them practical for lengthy presentations. By the early 2000s, digital projectors and screens replaced slide projectors, offering greater convenience and flexibility. These advancements marked a shift in how visual materials were shared and displayed. Number 16. CB radios. Citizens band radios, known as CB radios, were a common way for people to communicate in the 1970s, particularly among truck drivers and hobbyists. The Federal Communications Commission introduced them in the 1940s as a tool for short-distance two-way voice communication. These radios operated on 40 channels within the 27 MHz band and were simple to use, requiring no license. Truck drivers relied on CB radios to exchange updates about road conditions, police speed checks, and other information during long trips, making them an essential part of their journeys. The radios gained widespread popularity and became a cultural symbol, with trucker slang and nicknames entering mainstream awareness. Movies like Smokey and the Bandit and songs such as Convoy highlighted the CB radio lifestyle. Despite their usefulness, CB radios had drawbacks, including limited range and problems with interference, which affected their performance in certain environments. Number 15. Leaded gasoline. Leaded gasoline became a widely used car fuel in the 1920s to enhance engine performance by reducing knocking. Its key ingredient, tethyl, was developed by engineer Thomas Midgley Jr. at General Motors. This compound increased octane levels and made engines more efficient, but also released dangerous lead particles into the air. By the 1970s, the harmful consequences of lead exposure were clear, with links to severe health problems including brain damage, especially in children. Lead contamination also impacted air quality and ecosystems, raising significant environmental concerns. Recognizing these dangers, many countries started to gradually remove leaded gasoline during the 1980s and 90s, transitioning to cleaner alternatives to protect both public health and the environment. This change marked a critical step towards addressing the widespread damage caused by lead emissions from vehicles over decades of use. Number 14. Film cameras. Film cameras were essential tools for capturing memories, widely used by both professional photographers and hobbyists. These cameras relied on rolls of photographic film to record images, which required development in a darkroom. The process involved exposing the film to light to create negatives, which were then printed onto photographic paper, producing images with remarkable detail and vibrant colors. In the 1970s, film cameras reached their peak in popularity, with brands such as Kodak, Canon, and Nikon dominating the market. They played a significant role in everything from capturing family moments to professional photojournalism. The introduction of digital cameras in the late 20th century revolutionized photography by offering instant image review, greater storage options, and advanced editing capabilities. Digital cameras brought unparalleled convenience and versatility, rapidly transforming the industry and reducing reliance on traditional film-based systems while making photography more accessible to a wider audience. Number 13. Vinyl records. Vinyl records were the main way people listened to music during much of the 20th century. Columbia Records introduced them in 1948, using vinyl plastic to create discs that played at 33 1/3 revolutions per minute. These records delivered excellent sound quality and could store up to 22 minutes of music on each side. They gained massive popularity in the 1960s and 70s, especially during the rise of rock and roll. By the 1980s, cassette tapes and compact discs started to replace vinyl records. Compact discs, introduced in 1982, were more durable, easier to carry, and offered even higher sound quality. Later, digital music technology allowed people to store large music libraries on portable devices, making physical records less common. Despite their decline, vinyl records still hold a special place for music enthusiasts who appreciate their distinctive sound and nostalgic charm. Number 12. Manual car windows. Manual car windows, also called crank windows, were a common feature in vehicles for many years. These windows first appeared in the early 1900s, and people had to use a crank handle to move the window up or down. This simple design was reliable and easy to fix, making it a popular choice for a long time. As technology progressed, power windows started to take the place of manual windows in the mid-1990s. Power windows are controlled by pressing a button, which makes them more convenient and easier to use. They also offer better safety because drivers can adjust all the windows without removing their hands from the steering wheel. Manual windows have become rare and are mostly found in older or budget-friendly cars. Despite their decline in popularity, crank windows played a significant role in automotive history, offering a basic yet effective way to operate car windows for many years. Number 11. Carbon paper. Carbon paper was a tool used to make copies of documents. It was invented by Ralph Wedgwood in 1806 and consisted of a sheet covered with ink or pigment. When placed between two sheets of paper, writing on the top sheet would transfer ink to the bottom sheet, creating a copy. This method was commonly used in offices and businesses for many years. In the 1970s, carbon paper was still widely used to make multiple copies of forms and receipts. It provided a simple way to duplicate documents before photocopiers and digital printers became available. However, carbon paper had its limitations. It could smudge easily and could only be reused a few times. With the development of photocopiers in the 1980s and digital printers in the 1990s, carbon paper became less necessary and eventually disappeared as a standard method for copying documents. Number 10. Answering machines. Answering machines were common in homes, used to record messages when people couldn't answer the phone. They were invented in the 1930s and became popular in the 1970s and 80s. These machines worked by playing a greeting and recording the caller's message on a cassette tape. This allowed people to receive important messages even when they were not home. The first successful answering machine, the electronic secretary, was introduced in 1949. By the 1970s, models like the Phone Mate 400 were widely used and could screen calls and store multiple messages. Despite their usefulness, answering machines had some limitations, like short recording times and the need to check messages manually. In the 1990s, the introduction of voicemail services by phone companies caused the use of answering machines to decline. Voicemail provided a more convenient way to receive messages without the need for a physical device. Number 9. Fax machines. Fax machines were commonly used in offices and homes to send scanned documents through phone lines. Invented by Alexander Bain in 1843, fax technology improved over time. By the 1970s and 80s, fax machines became very popular, allowing businesses to send and receive documents quickly. They work by turning the contents of a document into sound signals that were sent over phone lines and then turned back into an image at the other end. Despite their widespread use, fax machines had some drawbacks, such as requiring a dedicated phone line and having a slow transmission speed. With the rise of email and digital document sharing in the 1990s, fax machines started to be used less. These newer technologies provided faster, more efficient, and flexible ways to share documents, leading to the decline of the fax machine's popularity. Number 8. Encyclopedias. Encyclopedias were widely used as the main source of information on a variety of topics. These books provided detailed articles on subjects like science, history, art, and literature. The most well-known example is the Encyclopedia Britannica, which was first published in 1768. Encyclopedias were extremely helpful for students, researchers, and anyone looking for knowledge before the internet became popular. In the 1970s, having a set of encyclopedias in a home was seen as a sign of intelligence and curiosity. Many families purchased these large sets, which were updated regularly to include the most recent information. With the rise of the internet in the late 20th century, people began to access information in a new way. Online resources and search engines like Google made it much easier to find up-to-date details quickly and efficiently, replacing traditional encyclopedias for many users. Number 7. Cassette tapes. Cassette tapes, also called compact cassettes, were a popular way to listen to music from the 1970s to the 1990s. Created by Philips in 1962, these small portable tapes made it easy for people to record and play music. They became especially popular for creating mixtapes and listening to music on the move, particularly with the release of the Sony Walkman in 1979. Cassette tapes consisted of magnetic tape inside a plastic casing capable of holding up to 90 minutes of music. They were more durable and portable than vinyl records, which made them a favorite among music lovers. As the 1980s progressed, compact discs began replacing cassette tapes because they offered better sound quality and were easier to use. Compact discs didn't wear out as fast and allowed for instant track selection. With the rise of MP3s and music streaming services in the 2000s, cassette tapes became outdated and less commonly used. Number 6. Pagers. Pagers, also called beepers, were a popular way for people to communicate between the 1970s and 1990s. They were invented by Al Gross in 1949 and allowed people to receive short messages and alerts. At first, doctors and emergency workers used them, but by the 1980s, pagers became common among the general public. Business professionals in particular liked them because they could stay in touch while on the go. Pagers worked by picking up radio signals that sent either numeric or alphanumeric messages. Users would then call a specific number to get the full message. This made pagers a very useful tool for quick communication, especially before mobile phones became widely available. In the 1980s, the introduction of wide area paging allowed messages to travel over longer distances, making pagers even more popular. Their ability to provide reliable communication in real time made them a key device before the rise of cell phones. Number 5. Betamax Tapes. Betamax Tapes, created by Sony in 1975, were one of the earliest home video formats. These tapes allowed people to record and watch TV shows and movies at home. Betamax was praised for its excellent picture quality, which was better than that of VHS, its biggest rival. Despite this, Betamax had a big drawback. It could only record for 1 hour, which was too short for many users. In contrast, VHS tapes could initially record up to 2 hours, and later versions allowed for even longer recordings. This made VHS more practical for people who wanted to record entire films or longer television programs without having to stop and change tapes. Over time, more manufacturers embraced VHS, making it the preferred choice. By the mid-1980s, VHS had become the leading home video format, while Betamax slowly disappeared from the market due to its limitations. Number 4. Floppy disks. Floppy disks were a popular way to store and move data in the past. They were first introduced by IBM in 1971, with the original version being 8 inches in size. Later, smaller versions such as 5.25 inches and 3.5 inches were made to be more practical. These disks had a thin, flexible magnetic material inside a plastic cover. The storage capacity of floppy disks was up to 1.44 megabytes of data, which was quite a bit at that time. In the 1970s and 80s, people used floppy disks for various purposes, like sharing software or saving personal data. They were especially important for moving files between computers before the internet was widely used. Despite their popularity, floppy disks had some downsides, like being easy to damage and having a small amount of storage compared to newer technology. Over time, floppy disks became outdated as more advanced methods of data storage took over. Number 3. Slide rules. Slide rules were important tools used for calculations by engineers, scientists, and students. They were invented in the 17th century by William Oughtred, who based his design on the work of John Napier, who studied logarithms. A slide rule consists of a fixed ruler and a sliding piece in the center, both marking with logarithmic scales. By lining up these scales, users could quickly perform tasks like multiplication, division, and other complicated calculations. During the 1970s, slide rules were still common in classrooms and offices. They were valued for their speed and accuracy, making calculations quicker and less likely to have errors compared to doing them by hand. However, slide rules had some downsides, like the need to estimate decimal points and not being as precise as modern tools. The invention of affordable electronic calculators in the 1970s and 80s caused the use of slide rules to decline. Number 2. Telex machines. Telex machines were important tools used to send text messages, especially in businesses and governments. They were invented in Germany in 1926 by Dr. Erich Budelmann. Telex machines allowed written messages to be sent electronically through telephone and telegraph lines. After World War II, they became very popular as a reliable way to send messages over long distances. The machines worked by turning text into electrical signals, which were sent over telephone lines to a receiving machine. This machine then printed out the message. This method was faster and safer than using traditional mail, making it especially useful for international businesses and diplomatic communication. Telex machines produce unique mechanical sounds, which became familiar in offices around the world. They were essential for communication during their time, but were eventually replaced by more advanced technology. At number 1, Polaroid cameras. Polaroid cameras were a major breakthrough in photography. Edwin H. Land invented the first Polaroid camera, the Land Model 95, in 1948. This camera allowed people to take a picture and see the result in just a few minutes, which was a huge deal at a time when developing film took days or even weeks. The cameras used special film that developed the image through a chemical process inside the camera itself. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Polaroid cameras became extremely popular due to their convenience and instant satisfaction they provided. People used them for family pictures, parties, and creative projects. The photos with their distinct white borders became an iconic symbol of that time. As digital cameras and smartphones became widely available in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the demand for Polaroid cameras decreased. Many people switched to digital options, and the popularity of instant photography began to fade. It's wild how the essentials of the 1970s have faded into history, replaced by modern innovations. From rotary phones to shag carpets, these once necessary items now spark nostalgia. Which of these relics do you miss the most, or wish would stay gone? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.